84th Texas legislative session ended on June 1st, and a number of bills that passed impact our classrooms. Joining us is HISD's Director of Government Relations, Ashlea Graves. Ashlea, we spent quite a bit of time in Austin together this past legislative session. There were several issues that impacted the school district in different ways, but I think the one we spent the most time on was dealing with the Robin Hood issue and how it would affect us. I know we escaped a major hit for this year, but not so fortunate for the next year. So could you explain a little bit about how this will affect the district and actually what Robin Hood is?
Sure. And thank you so much for coming to Austin repeatedly this session. It really boded well to have you and members of the board down speaking to legislators in the Capitol. It made all the difference in the world, so thank you for sacrificing your time. So the Robin Hood issue is a complex issue because it affects our finances ultimately. Historically, HISD has been on the cusp of paying what is called recapture or returning money to the state for some years now, and we were actually in a most threatening situation this session. So with Chapter 41, which is what the state calls property wealth, we were deemed property wealthy and thus subject to returning money to the state. Estimates could have been around $200 million plus for the 2016-17 biennium or budget cycle. And our team was able to reduce that to about $140 million over the 2016-17 biennium. The first year we would pay about $200,000, maybe more. And the second year, which is the next school year, we would pay about $138 million in local taxpayer dollars that are then sent to the state and distributed to property poor districts elsewhere.
And we know that would have a significant impact, or it's going to have a significant impact on what we were able to do budgetary and in the classroom.
Exactly.
So that's unfortunate. But in the interim, we can start to look at ways to minimize the effects of that. So
certainly.
At least we are that much ahead of the curve. And so there was also some legislation that actually was district driven on dual credit and the opportunities to expand the offerings for our students. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So one of our other major priorities was making sure that our students had more access to dual credit opportunities. We believe that students, especially at-risk students, benefit from college level coursework in high school.
Right.
And so we pursued that legislatively, and now we're able to work with more than one community college to offer dual credit. So we can now work with HCC, which we were before, and we can work with Lone Star and San Jacinto and Lee College as well.
Right. So we've opened that option up from 1 to 4, which should help with our HB5 opportunities for those pathways for our kids as well. So I think that kind of gives a more diverse alignment with where our student population is going. Now we also know that early childhood and pre-K were a huge deal for both sides of the aisle, and as far as our Texas kids go for the early intervention. And we had the opportunity, both you and I, to sit with the governor over at St. George's Place, which was an incredible opportunity, and talk to him a little bit about pre-K. And we know that there were a number of pieces of legislation that were based on providing pre-K, but we did get some of that approved, and although the funding and where we'd like to see it. Tell us a little bit about how that played out and where we are on the funding for that.
Sure. So House Bill 4 was the governor's pre-K bill. It's designed to incent districts to create or expand their pre-K programs. So we at HISD have a full day program. Some districts have half day. And if you qualify for if you have to qualify for the funds by using certain pre-K quality standards. And so we qualify because we have a parental engagement model. We hire teachers that are certified. We have all the requirements basically outlined in House Bill 4. So we would receive additional funds through the pre-K grant program here at HISD to do what we want with those dollars.
Okay. And so that we were already paying for the full day pre-K, and this just kind of supplements that, so we can take those dollars and funnel them somewhere else.
Exactly.
Okay. Great. We spent 5 months, I think, in Austin during this legislative session. There were many bills, some of which did not make it to the table that we necessarily weren't surprised about. But some of the more difficult moments and some of the more difficult things that we thought we would face, can you kind of elaborate on where the bumps were?
Sure. So one particular bill that we were concerned about going into the session was the Opportunity School District bill, because it would have taken the bottom 5% schools throughout the state and turned them into a statewide school district. We were concerned about that because it removed local control from HISD and from our school board and our administration. So we did express some recommendations to either tweak the bill or make it better. Ultimately, the bill failed, I think, because it was too intrusive and it did eliminate local control. But there were some bills that were offered as a compromise in place of that. One was House Bill 1842, which creates the Board of Managers as an imminent threat if school districts don't turn around struggling schools. So that was kind of a compromise to the Opportunity School District bill. Another bill was the parent trigger bill that would allow parents to take over struggling schools after 3 years and, hire alternative management or close the school. It would give parents flexibility to basically take that school over. That bill died also. And we are fine with parental involvement and fine with parental control, but there still needs to be some mechanisms in place with the way we govern our school district that impact and help kids.
Right.
So a parent trigger law would not be beneficial.
Right. Okay. So in closing, if we were to say anything to our viewers about what we could do in the interim to benefit our situation here at HISD, what would you say that would be?
I think the number one concern for the interim is finding ways to mitigate our property wealth status. We need to do more in the interim, and my team will be involved in that to make sure that we can reduce that $140 million payment even further. There is a pending school finance lawsuit right now. The state Supreme Court has it in their grasp, and oral arguments will begin this fall. We expect a verdict early 2016, which could be favorable to districts like HISD. Chapter 41 of the Education Code was never intended for districts like us. We're large, urban, student poor. And so if they can do something with the school finance system next year after the Supreme Court rules, I would be very happy with that.
I think we all would. Well, thank you for coming and taking the time to join us today and get us up to speed on what happened this legislative session. I appreciate it.